right, guys. I think we have a crowd. I think they're listening to us, and we thought we were just us. Welcome everybody to this month's presentation for Nairobi Securities Exchange. Robert is here, ready to go. He is pumped up. He has good things to share with us about Nairobi, what's happening there. So, Robert, if you're ready, I'm going to give this over to you. I've already enabled sharing screen if you want to share a screen, and then we'll take questions whenever you're ready.
Yeah, thank you very much. So my name is Robert, and I'm glad to be here again today. So first we started with the underworld stories that you need to know. One thing about Kenya is that most of the stories, they're not actually in the uptown world. And usually tell people that live in Karen and Kilimani that they're disadvantaged because they really don't know Nairobi and Kenya. And we say that in Kenya, there are two businesses. So one is if you are going to target the mass market. The second one is if you are going to target the ultra rich. So if you are there in the middle, targeting the woke guys, you'll always be disadvantaged because your business will be very cyclic. Because we live large on the good days, then we downgrade on the bad days. Like now, most people have downgraded from those good schools. So people have closed a lot of private schools. So you can see, but still Safaricom and Equity are surviving because they target the mass market. I'll still need to use airtime no matter what happens. Yeah, so those stories that we are talking about is just something that people need to know. And you've seen like investment companies coming to Kenya because of lack of that knowledge. You had a very good example whereby a UK investment firm, they didn't realize that real estate had peaked, and they put in around 14 billion Kenya shillings in Athi River mining cement. When actually people who are in Kenya, we knew that that company was going down. So as we speak now, that investment from 2016 is worth less than 1.5 billion. From 14 billion. So you need to know both sides of Kenya. You need to know the Karen, the Kilimani, and what the man on the ground, those who you see reading the newspapers in town the whole day, they're not idlers. They know what is happening in Kenya, and it's very good source of information as well. Yeah, so thank you. So today we are going to look at just the general view of the capital markets. I don't want anything deep today. But at the end of it, we are going to now focus on Safaricom earnings so that at least you have an idea of how to look at their earnings and how they performed and what you think about their earnings and any other information that is out there for them. So of course, when we look at investing, we are still in that situation whereby we tend to favor physical assets, the lands. So we hope that will change. So I just read an article today from the Wall Street Journal where they said that for the first time, 41% of the wealth owned by US households is in the stock market. So that was done by the JP Morgan Chase. So that was quite interesting. So for us here, what we own is known as Fuliza. Like last year, that's a mobile loan. So last year, on average, Kenyans borrowed 960 million per day. So in a year, that's 350 billion disbursed. Yet when you look at the stock market, the turnover for the whole year was 38 billion. 38 billion for the stock market, mobile loans 350 billion. Yes, so those statistics, they kind of tell you how vibrant our stock market is not, because we tend to favor the land, physical assets and things like that. Yeah, but we are hoping that more people would get into the stock market and see the opportunity that is there, especially if you look at some of the well-established and well-run companies. So the good thing with the NSE is that you have about only 15 of them. So it becomes very easy to analyze once you know the companies to avoid. So if you look at our pensions, like the pensions fund, the total assets now stand at over 1.2 trillion Kenya shillings. So that's like 1,200 billion Kenya shillings, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it is just sitting there. We don't want to unlock value. So startups are still going to the West. So these days, if people hear that Abojani has raised $1 million, which is just 100 million Kenya shillings, the whole village, everyone will celebrate, including CEOs of big companies like Safaricom, Equity. They'll celebrate you, but not knowing that actually they're the ones who could have funded you from the 1.2 trillion Kenya shillings sitting in the pension funds. So we have that disconnect whereby we still don't believe that we can fund ourselves. We still believe that if it is funding, it needs to come from outside Kenya. But again, when there's success, like the way Jumia was able to list in the US, now people start regretting, but how comes we didn't see this coming? Yeah. So there's a need, especially for people in diaspora, because if you look at the money coming from diaspora, last year it was over 300 billion. If you look at the kind of money that people are raising here, $1 million, that's just 100 million Kenya shillings. It is a very little amount of money if you compare it to 300 billion. Yeah, so there's that big gap that you need people to know that there are opportunities that you can take advantage of and look beyond land. Because as we speak now, the greenhouse scams, now if you look at total land scams from Gakuyo, all those, they stand at over 18 billion Kenya shillings lost. Yeah, so that unstructured market has its good side and bad side. So usually in Kenya, we say that everyone makes money in Matatu except yourselves. So that one happens again when it comes to land. Everyone seems to be doing well in these businesses when we are in the bars, in the golf clubs. But if you try it to yourself, you find that it is not as straightforward as people say. Yeah, so why would people invest? So of course there's safety, and I'd say that locally we are very big on safety. So first thing is to own land so that you feel very safe. So that one, of course, it happened even to myself. My first ever job, I took a loan of 500,000, bought a piece of land. That's now when you start now thinking of other things. But I think without land, I don't know how I would feel without land. So it's just something that is in us. Yeah. So that safety is key. We are okay with owning like 40 pieces of land, but we'll still be hospitalized so that we can contribute for you, but you're a millionaire. So you can see in terms of unlocking value, we still don't understand the concept of liquidity, which the capital markets give us. So it's very, very key that if we could learn to balance that, it would actually unlock value in our capital markets, because the value for Safaricom was unlocked by foreigners because they listed and we got bored, sold all our shares at 3 and 2 Kenya shillings. Then the foreigners came and saw that what is this thing called mobile money that even the likes of Mark Zuckerberg are coming to Kenya to study. So they pumped in the money and the share price started going up. We were just watching on the sidelines. Once it hit 21, we said that, okay, 21 seems to be a bit high. This share price should drop to 14 Kenya shillings. It didn't. It went to 30, now it is at around 39. Yeah, so again, another thing to invest is to get returns, let's say for retirements and personal goals. So as you know, for retirement, currently 83% of Kenyans, they're not able to take care of themselves in that retirement age. So that means that we outsource our needs to our children. So that trend also means that our children will always be overworked, working from 8 to 5. Of course, by then they would have woken up at 4 a.m., stuck in traffic from Kitengela or Ruiru, to reach the offices at 8 in the morning. Then in the evening, when they leave at 5, they'll be at home maybe at 9 because of crazy traffic. So you can see that quality of life. You work that hard, but you have so many dependents. So for every one Kenya that works, on average, you have 3 dependents, because only a third of the adult population is working. But you know, the children or younger people are actually more. If you look at our population, given that we have one of the fastest population growth rate in Kenya. So it just means that we have to find a way of building like resilient portfolios that can also help us to grow our wealth in terms of liquidity, and also thinking about the future so that we can become self-reliant. And that's where the capital markets now come into play. Yeah, so I think we looked at this last time, and I believe that the audience today, you pretty much understand what investing is all about when looking at risk rewards, how to measure returns. So again, investment time horizon is key. So when people have a long time outlook, that's again when the stock market will tend to do well, because when companies raise funds, like in the year 2008, Safaricom raised 50 billion Kenya shillings. And that has really helped them to do a lot. So when they raised that, their market capitalization was 200 billion Kenya shillings. As we speak, it is at around 1.5 trillion to 1.6. So you can see it has grown 8 times. So that's a perfect example of how capital markets help people to unlock value. But our capital market has always been land, so it's just store value somewhere. But what if we could fund companies, not all companies, but solid companies? And like I've told you, the beauty of the capital markets is that we have a few good companies, so it is much easier to do analysis. And also there are some companies that you don't even need to look at twice. Like recently we saw Homeboys, they were trying to list, but they could not even answer the basic questions about investing. So you just let them pass and focus on serious companies like British American Tobacco and EABL. So the other thing is that some of the people who want to raise funds here in Kenya, they're jokers and you'll just see it from day one. You just need to be keen. And so you've seen there's a program known as Ibuka by the NSE, and the caliber of some of the companies that are coming on board. You find someone wants to list their company, but they've forgotten that they're running that company. On Facebook, you're seeing that full time they are campaigning to be an MP. So you can clearly see if they're the key person or the CEO of that company, you don't need to waste your time investing in such company. So it again becomes very easy in terms of identifying the companies that are well run, solid, like British American Tobacco, EABL, Safaricom, Equity, KCB, and the rest. Yeah, so these are some of the macroeconomic indicators. Always good to note the rate at which Kenya shillings is trading versus the dollar. So probably you left Kenya and it was at 78 or 70, 80 there. Now we are at between 105 to 110. So that could also inform your investments. So we've seen the sterling pound, maybe you left when it was trading at 120 or 100, now it is at 130, 150 there. So these are very key parameters. If maybe you are investing and importing things in dollar, let's say from China or the USA, you create value, then you export back. So you need to be aware of this and always play from a point of view where if Kenya shillings is going at 105, your budget should be at 108 or 110 because it tends to be quite volatile. And also these are case to have some of the investments in the USD. The way things are going, and given that we are net importers, when you look at our budget deficit is quite huge, so we still rely on foreign debt. So currently, total debt in Kenya stands at over 7 trillion Kenya shillings, and about 3.5 trillion is in foreign currency. So most of it in USD. And it is said that when Kenya shillings fluctuates by just one Kenya shillings versus the dollar, let's say it moves from 105 to 106, our external debt grows by 30 billion Kenya shillings. So it's good to know this information because macro can really shock you when you hear things like tax. So once you put them into consideration, it will also help you to know the kind of risk and returns that you are looking at. For example, Safaricom has given investors returns of about 50% from April last year. So that is worth it. If you are going to get 50% returns, then it is a risk that is worth taking. But if you're just going to get returns of 6 or 7%, and inflation here is at 6%, it simply means that we are not doing well, or basically, from a risk-adjusted point of view, we are actually not doing anything because we are losing money in investing. So our markets have money market, capital market, circles, and forex. So I want to focus on circles as well. So for circles, please go to Sasra website. So let me type it on the chat. So there's a lot of changes happening in that space. So please make sure that your circle is in good books with Sasra, because we've seen that some people have taken advantage of circles. The governance structure of circles is a bit of the way, for some circles, it is like the way we run our politics, whereby the officials are voted for. So because of that, there have been a lot of governance issues for those circles that are not regulated by SASRA. But now the ministry has said that they are going to force all of them to come into SASRA, under SASRA. So they're being asked, where are your financials? And now it is the 6 months, the sixth month, and most of them don't know where their financials are. So we are going to have heads rolling. So please be careful when you about your circles. Go to SASRA website, ensure that your circle is in that list. If not, ask the officials what is going on and watch that space, because it is going to become very hot. We've realized that those circles, people took advantage, and maybe some of them have been mismanaging funds and not filing the financials with everyone. So this is a hot area that you need to look at. So the good things that I believe some of the best diaspora circles, they're in good books, but just be sure. It doesn't cost you anything to do your due diligence to confirm that you're in good books. Yeah, so when we look at money markets here in Kenya again, you can see that currently, like as at December 2020, the total funds in unit trust in Kenya stood at only $1 billion. So $1 billion. So it simply means that we are not still very keen in these capital markets and money markets. So that's just 104 billion Kenya shillings in unit trust or mutual funds. At Fuliza, we are doing 350 billion in loans in a year. So it's like 3.5 times. Yeah, so in terms of capital preservation, some of the best vehicles are the stock market or capital markets. And we need to also start thinking of that, because money market funds are quite liquid. So we have a very good example of a client who was very big in real estate. So they had some apartments in money, but they learned that when they put like 10 million in an apartment and start collecting the coins, like 50,000 Kenya shillings per month, I don't know how long it will take to get back their 10 million Kenya shillings. They realized that if they put that 10 million Kenya shillings in infrastructure bond, which the last one went at around 12.6% per annum tax-free, they realized that instead of collecting the coins, that 10 million Kenya shillings will be intact, and at the end of year one, they'll get 1.2 million Kenya shillings, which that is something they could have collected in rent in 2 years. And remember, for rent, they're starting from 0.0. I don't know whether that makes sense, because you've bought the house at 10 million Kenya shillings, and we start collecting 50,000 Kenya shillings per month. So at the end of year one, if everything goes well, you have 600,000, and you've not even broken even. But for infrastructure bond from year one, you already have your principal intact. So she couldn't even believe that she had missed that like for the last 20 years. Yeah, so this is the reason why we want as many as possible to learn about capital markets, to know that they're very good for diversification. Because if something is said over and over again, just like you are told about land, then it will become the only source of truth. But you need to know what is out there so that we make the best decisions, or at least we are able to diversify. So capital markets, you said that they're long-term. So in Kenya, we are talking about Treasury Bonds. We have the stock market. We have mortgages, things like that, home ownership. So just something to note again, for capital markets, what has not done well is also good to know. So we've seen that companies where government owns at least 51%. So from data, they've not done well. Our good friends, Kenya Power, KQ, Uchumi, Mumias. So I don't know when you left Kenya how they were, but now if you come, we could take you to a supermarket, you'll be shocked not to find Mumias sugar on the shelves. So there are some new brands these days called Cabras. So you'll be a total stranger in that shelf. You won't even know which brands those are. Yeah. So that's the reality. Uchumi again, trying to trace any of their branches now would be like you're trying to find oil in Kenya. So there's only one outlet, the one at Aga Khan Walk, near Rambe Avenue and KCB Kencom. Yeah, so that's something. East African Portlands, the cement company again, there's a time they fired everyone. So basically they're not doing well. So the only company where government owns at least 51% and doing well is Kengen. So it's good to also have that information so that you know the things that you should not waste your time on. Yes. So the other thing is that we have some companies that used to be run by the government, but the government was humble enough to source for good management to run those companies. So they have little control in terms of the day-to-day running of those companies. So these companies are Centum, KCB, and Safaricom. So in Centum, government owns about 17% there. So if you remember, it used to be called ICDC, right? So it was like the investment arm of the government. Let me type it, ICDC. But now it is run by Chris Kirubi and his team. Then of course, Safaricom, they have Vodacom there. So they really help in terms of corporate governance. Then KCB, also the government owns about 20-something%, at 17% directly, then indirectly through NSSF, it comes to 20-something%. But it has been well run since Martin Odur Otieno took over. And then now you have Joshua Igara, so he's also doing quite well. So those are some of the key pointers just to guide you to know what to avoid. What to avoid is also very key in this market because you can work very hard, invest consistently, but you're investing in the wrong companies. So the other companies that you'd want to avoid, you need to be very keen on manufacturing sector. So the situation here, and I'm speaking about this as someone who has run a data center of a commercial bank here in Kenya. And believe you me, it was very expensive to run because the electricity here is not that reliable. So you'll find that most of the times the data center is being run on diesel or alternative sources of energy, which are very expensive. So Kenya Power, it is there, it is a big brand, it is a big name, but you could do a whole weekend just running on generators. And believe you me, it's very, very expensive. So if you're running a manufacturing plant, you'd have problems with the licenses, electricity would be a problem, taxation. So that has really been a disadvantage to our manufacturing sector, and it has really affected listed companies in that sector. So Bamburi Cement, sorry, Bamburi Cement, their best days are behind them. So the share price used to trade at 150 Kenya shillings. Now it is trading at less than 50. They're having a lot of challenges. So a lot of companies, Samia, which manufactures tires. So these days they import from China instead of producing locally because what they produce locally is more expensive than the imported ones. So I don't know how that possible that, but it happens here. Yeah, so that was just an overview. Always key to know that. So we have commercial banks, fixed deposits, current accounts, savings. So fixed deposits, the returns are at around 6%. Current account 0. Savings between 3 to 5 there. If you're lucky, you'd get 6. So, but remember, inflation is at 6%. So this is where you lose money by saving. Then now we have money market funds. So we will look at the list shortly. Then commercial papers, again, please be careful on this. It has not been a rosy story. The likes of Nakumat, when companies want to collapse here in Kenya, what they do is that they'll issue a corporate bond or commercial paper. So corporate bonds, if you can avoid, please do. Commercial papers, the same. So companies that have defaulted corporate bonds have real people, which was a microfinance company, though than paying now, but they defaulted. We've had Chase Bank, which issued a bond, then collapsed. Imperial Bank, the same. So you want to be very keen on commercial papers and corporate bonds, because data shows that in the recent past, people have taken advantage and misused them. So for money market funds, you have equity funds, so they invest in shares. Balanced funds, they invest in a mixture of shares and treasury bills and bonds. So these two, they've not done very well in Kenya because of fluctuations in the share prices. So people have actually been in a position whereby you can invest like 1 million Kenya shillings. At a year down the line, it is at 800,000 Kenya shillings. So there's no capital preservation there, but there is capital preservation here. And you'll get returns that will come in at around 8 to 11%. So this is the most popular one, money market funds. So it's also good to be aware of that. So if you go to companies like Nabo, please just say, I want money market funds, because they'll try to sell you things there, especially sales agent. The sales agent, you'll find that maybe if they sell you money market fund, they're getting commissions of 0.5%. But if they sell you an equity fund, they're getting a commission of 1%. So which one would they sell you where they're getting the 1%? So you need to know so that you make the right decision. So if you look at money market funds, let's say you want to build a house here in Kenya, and you project that in the first few months, you'd need 5 million Kenya shillings, right? And you need that money to be here in Kenya. So instead of leaving it in a current account for 6 months, you can put it in a money market fund. So 1 million Kenya shillings, you'll earn a net of around 7,000 Kenya shillings. So in that 6 months, that will be around 40-something thousand Kenya shillings. So if you're building, again, that's good money that can help you do a few things. So instead of getting 0, why not earn something with that 1 million? If it is 10 million Kenya shillings, you can see how much it gets to over 70,000 Kenya shillings in a month. So you can see how not knowing about the capital markets and money markets can cost you. So 70,000 Kenya shillings, it can pay the fundis and the workers. So instead of leaving it as, sometimes there can be delays in the project, right? Maybe for 3 months, and that money sitting idle in a current account, fat bank account balance, but the bank is lending that money at 13%, yet you are getting 0. So, but if you take it to unit trust or money market funds, which we recommend that you look for established ones like CIC or Britam, at least you'll be getting something as you wait to start doing your project. So again, they work very well for emergency funds. And let me tell you, like, some of the best ideas, since you are in diaspora and you support people, one of the best ways to support your parents can actually be, instead of just dishing out money and giving the money regularly, you can say that you're going to put for them 1 million Kenya shillings in money market fund. Then they just cash out the interest per month. That interest can be, like you said, 7,000 Kenya shillings per month. So those are some of the very clever and wise ways that you could do. And even for your own retirement, if you have like 10 million Kenya shillings, you'll get around 70,000 Kenya shillings per month. It means that if you have 20 million Kenya shillings, you'll get between 150 to 180,000 Kenya shillings per month. So beginning with the end in mind, if you want to come back to Kenya at some point in time, you might not get a job immediately, but you need some source of income. So you can put that money in the money market fund. So if you are thinking of returning home 101, these are some of the ideas. You begin with the end in mind. So they are very good vehicles for that. Yes, so Judy, for the money market funds, their interests are very predictable. They are between 8 and 11%. So they are very, very predictable here in Kenya. And for people in diaspora, if you are looking at the long term, then instead of doing only money market, you can say that you're going to put a big percentage of that income or that money in Treasury Bonds, which now currently as we speak, they're giving returns of around 13.6%. So between 12.6 to 13.6%. So you could see that you have options here. So it's just for you to weigh, and then you look at your investment time horizon. Yeah, so rentals are not the only way to have some reliable source of income when you're in Kenya. Because we've seen situations whereby when tenants leave, it takes times before you can get the next one, and sometimes you can have problems collecting the rent, but this one is more guaranteed. So you can have a mixture of investment asset classes in your portfolio. Yeah, so money market funds, they invest in fixed deposits. Since they have pooled funds, they can negotiate for higher rates. We have called deposits, treasury, bills, commercial papers, and the likes. And their risk return is in the low range, but guaranteed in most cases. And they are quite liquid. You can get the funds between 2 to 4 days, working days. So to open them, I usually say that you need your KYC documents, so national ID or passport, KRA PIN, proof of banking. So always ensure that as much as you're in diaspora, please try to have a working account in Kenya. It makes it easy for you to invest locally. So another thing is just to know how to send money to Kenya, whether it is through M-Pesa. So you have unfortunate situations whereby people, I think especially from the UAE, they don't know how to send money back in Kenya. So you trust someone else who is also in the UAE to send money back home for you using the M-Pesa. So I don't know how it works for them, but they lose money through that a lot of times. So you should know how to do some of this stuff so that you don't rely on third parties. Because before you realize that that person has not been doing what you've entrusted them to do, maybe you might have lost a lot of money. So these are the unit trusts in Kenya. So whenever you hear of the money market fund, please, it should not be the financial services industry coming to you. It should be you acting from a point of information. So this is the Msema Ukweli from the Capital Markets Authority. So this list you can always just Google. Let me tell you the keywords. So just say CMA Statistical Bulletin. So it is released every 4 months. So check down the chart. Yeah, so just keep this somewhere. So anytime you want to see the latest list of money market funds, just say CMA Statistical Bulletin and you'll see it on their website. Also looked at CMA licensed players. So what happens is that you have some funds, some companies, they just have one fund that is licensed by the CMA. But when they're coming to diaspora, they'll come with another fund that is not with the CMA. Then you'll invest and things go wrong. You go to the CMA, they say, no, we don't regulate that fund. So it's very important to know the keywords. So that will help you. So you can quickly see here that you have CIC at 42 billion Kenya shillings, NCB at 12 billion, Britam at 12 billion, ICL Lion at 1.5 billion. So maybe you'll realize these are not the loudest funds in diaspora. So these smaller ones, they find that the easiest way to grow is to come to diaspora. So that doesn't necessarily mean that they're the best, but they're just finding that because you don't have a lot of information, it is easier to grow through diaspora people. So please know that the most established ones, the biggest ones are the safest ones. So you can see some of the loudest ones here. I won't have any comment, but you should always trust data. So they're the ones who will just camp at your door there in the US or diaspora. Because here people understand them and people tend to keep away from them. So the easiest way is to look for people who don't have a lot of information. So always look at this list regularly. So these are the rates for the treasury bills as we speak. So you know that treasury bills, again, if you are to compare money markets and treasury bills, currently 364-day treasury bills are giving higher rates at 9.4%. So if you have like 1 year investment time horizon, then you'd go for treasury bills. So you need to weigh your options and see what works best for you. So the only disadvantage of treasury bills is that there's a lot of human interventions. So for those who don't have self-discipline, again, it can be a problem because you can invest your 1 million there, get 94,000 Kenya shillings at the end of the year. Then we say that you eat your interest. So it basically means that from an investment point of view, you've done nothing in that year. But maybe if it were a money market fund, there's no intervention that is needed from you. So you need to look at yourself and see if you're disciplined. That would also determine which investment asset class you could look at. Yeah, so there are people who are in circles, but every year they consume their dividends. So basically, they're not doing much from an investment point of view because of lack of discipline. And stock markets again, so we have the stocks, treasury bonds. So long-term treasury bonds are giving very good rates currently at between 12.6 to 13.6%. So if you have a long-term investment horizon, you can look at them. And you can also cash out in the secondary market. So that is very keen. Whenever you are ready, you can engage Pete so that you can help you with that. If you want to cash out and you've invested in bonds, you can cash out in the secondary market. So again, it's not quite straightforward for ordinary people, but we can help you through the investment banks. And now we also have a partnership with the NSE to work together, so it becomes very easy for you to be assisted. Corporate bonds, like I've told you, is always good to know what to avoid. They've not had very positive stories. Then real estate investment trusts. So this is whereby a company pulls funds from the public, then they invest in real estate property and share with investors 80% of the net rents that have been collected. So currently we have only one known as Fahari IRET at the Nairobi Securities Exchange, but we understand that more are coming. So they're well managed and they can help you to get an exposure in real estate sector as well. You can see these are some of the results of the recent auctions, whereby we are seeing rate of accepted bills at 12.9 to 13.9%. So believe you me, these are very, very good rates. So if you have a long-term time horizon when investing, this could really help you. So these are the opportunities that are there. So this is why we are telling you, for that 10 million that you're putting in an apartment, and we start collecting the coins, you'll still have your 10 million and you get 1.39 million Kenya shillings. Of course, they'll take 15% withholding tax, but believe you me, that would be like an equivalent of 2 years of rent collected from an apartment here in Kenya at that amount. So someone who is investing treasury bill, just walk into the central bank, open an account like a boss, sign that bidding form, sit and relax. While the person who owns an apartment is calling people, shouting, calling people manner of names. Sometimes they won't pay. But what you are getting in 1 year is less than. So someone who is invested in treasury bonds is getting 2 times what you are getting in 1 year. But you are working very hard and your friends are telling you how hardworking you are. So let's learn to be smart as well. Yeah, there's hard work and smartness. So smartness is based on how well you know how things work. So you'll really be cheered in terms of that. So minimum investment amount For Treasury Bonds is 50,000 Kenya shillings. For Treasury bills is 100,000 Kenya shillings. So quite affordable for people who are in the diaspora. So for Nairobi Securities Exchange, you have a channel there. So whenever you are ready, please let's engage. The companies to invest in, they are quite straightforward. We have Diamond Trust Bank, and Bank, Standard Chartered, Stanbic Bank, Equity Bank, Safaricom, EABL, BAT. So there are not that many. There are about 15 that are worth looking at. So what matters is whether you are ready. Once you are ready, we could help you get started, because that is actually our area of strength as a Bojani. And you need to know these bodies and what they do. So anything to do with your account, if you bought those Safaricom IPO shares and you have no idea where they are, please contact CDSC, Central Depository and Settlement Corporation. So they'll be able to trace where your investments are. You just need your ID and they'll help you. So you can reach them through Twitter or on their website, which is CDSC Kenya. So CMA, please, all these funds that are coming to you in diaspora, please just try to check that people are regulated by CMA. Just like for us, for financial education, we're regulated by CIFA. So if you go to the website of the CIFA, you should ensure that under member firms, if you type up Bojani, it should be there. So always try to ensure that companies you are dealing with are regulated by these three. For investments and for financial education is CIFA. It means that if things go wrong, you can be assisted. But if you invest in a fund that is not with CMA, they'll just give you that information that they can't help you, and that's it. So here we don't have fractional shares. So the minimum shares that you can buy is 100. So if you want to buy Safaricom now that is trading at 39 Kenya shillings, you need about 3,900 minimum. Then you buy in multiples of 100 Kenya shillings. And brokerage commissions, they range at between 1.8 to 2.1%, but some brokerage firms like ABAxis, they charge only 1.3%, but only if you do your transactions online. They'll charge you lower to encourage people to do online transactions. So the NSE, again, once you are ready, we'll be here to help you. You have a whole channel there. Just ask questions there. It should be straightforward. Then this is just an example of analysis that you had for banks. So it should really help you to get started. I don't know when you left how things were, but just for our information now, the NIC and CBA Bank, Commercial Bank of Africa, and NIC Bank, they merged and formed NCBA. Then maybe when you left, I&M was just a small outlet, but believe you me now, it is the fourth most profitable bank, even ahead of Standard Chartered, Stanbic, and Barclays. So I remember like our parents, like our dad, my dad, I think they really struggled to open accounts with Standard Chartered and Barclays of the times, but that is history now. They've been relegated to number 5 or in top 10, but not in the top 4. So number 1 currently in terms of assets, believe you me, is Equity Bank at about 1 trillion Kenya shillings. KCB number 2 closely there. But traditionally in terms of profitability, KCB has always been ahead, though this year Equity was ahead of KCB. So this information is useful. Yeah, so Kavi left when Stanbic was Greenlay. I hope you don't have an account with the so-called Greenlay banks. You'll try to find it here. You won't see it anywhere. So it's good to keep updated, keep yourself updated. Because again, CFC Stanbic, it merged. It was a merger between CFC and Stanbic, but now they've dropped the name CFC. Now it's just Stanbic. So it's good to know that information as well. So Coop Bank, now the 3rd largest bank. You know, this is the bank where most circles bank with. So I usually tell people that if you are very, very big in saving in circles, it's good to have an account with Coop, because if you transfer, it is free. Most circles bank there. But some people, you'll find that someone is saving 5,000 Kenya shillings per month, but their salary account is with KCB. So they do an RTGS from KCB to Coop. When they transfer, they are charged 500 Kenya shillings. Then in a year, the interest, if you look at the interest you are getting from the SACCO versus the bank charges, they're quite a lot. So those are also the smart ways to try to maximize on returns, avoid unnecessary charges if where you can. So you can see the price to book value, NCB and DTB, Stanbic, and they're trading cheaply, quite cheaply. And this thing was happening with Jubilee Insurance and BAT, and no one was looking at it until foreigners came and say, okay, you don't want to invest in good companies, we'll start buying them. And we have a European insurance company called Allianz that sponsors Bayern Munich. They bought Jubilee Insurance shares, like their general insurance business, at an equivalent of 791 Kenyan shillings per share, when it was trading at 228, the market value was at around 500. Then now is when we realized, so this company is this valued. Now everyone went in and the share price went to 280. So sometimes you are not very good at seeing opportunities and investing at the right time. And that's how BAT went from 300 to 480 in a matter of months. So you can see banks now are very efficient. Believe you me, there's a time where cost to income ratio of KCB was at 80%. So that means that for every 1 Kenya shillings that they were earning as revenue, 80% was going to cost, but now only 45%. So they are very efficient now, world class now in terms of efficiency. So you can see how efficient again I&M Bank is here. So these are very key ratios to look at, to book ratio, because banks, you can value them using price to book or book value because they hold a lot of assets in cash. So very, very important to look at that. Shareholder funds, we have now equity at 139, 142. So these companies, in terms of shareholder funds, they're richer than even Safaricom. So Safaricom is trading at higher multiples because it is a tech company. So loan to deposit ratio, you can see customer deposits, KCB is the largest there. So you can see this information, and M is very smart in using less to achieve more. You can see it is relatively smaller in this, but does very well with the little that it has. So very efficient bank, doing wholesale banking. So this way you say that it is quite straightforward when you look at analyzing NSE listed companies. A lot of them, they're not doing well. So just look at which ones to avoid and focus on the good ones. Then you can create a balanced portfolio which you can help you with. So this is how you open a CDS account. So I can see we are running out of time. So let me quickly go to Safaricom website. So if you go to Safaricom website, you'll then go to Investor Relations tab. Then now, let us now go to, we have 3 items here. Very, very informative if you want to invest. So this is what Morgan Stanley and the rest do. They come here, open these tabs, do analysis, then advise foreigners to invest in Safaricom. Yeah, so Morgan Stanley, as you know, they created a portfolio of Kenyan shares that has given returns of an average of 12% in the last 10 years. Then we say that the NSE is not doing well. The NSE is doing well for people who are doing good analysis. So that portfolio is heavy on Safaricom with 60%. Then it has the likes of BAT, EABL, KCB, and equity. So when investing, we are not tagging the index. We are not investing in the 66 companies listed in the NSE. Let me tell you, some of them, they're helpless. Like Nation Media, each and every year, their profits and revenue are dropping since 2013. So if they can't help themselves, why would someone invest? But people still invest. So you can see, we have strong companies that are doing very well and some that are not doing well. That's why it is very good to be smart in our selection of securities. So let's quickly look at Safaricom Income. So we know that it was a tough year, but still I usually say that we need to start being tough on Safaricom because it's a tech company and tech companies were growing during COVID, right? So it had, so these are their numbers. So service revenues, they're anything to do with the money that they earn from the mobile phone. Services like voice, M-Pesa, data, SMSs. So that is there. So SMS revenues, you can see they're declining because we are not SMSing anymore. but M-Pesa revenues are going up. So the key thing about M-Pesa revenue, in the first half of the year, the Central Bank of Kenya zero-rated some M-Pesa transactions, so that affected them, so that in the first half, the income from M-Pesa was only 35.9 billion Kenya shillings. But in the second half, in the last 3 months, the restrictions were lifted, there is zero-rated amounts were lifted. So in the second half, Safaricom made 46.7 billion from M-Pesa. So you can see in first half, 35.9, in the second half, 46 billion. So you can see that there's a lot of potential there in M-Pesa. And it is key for us to note that for the first time, M-Pesa revenue they've surpassed voice revenue. So that means that people are no longer calling as much as they were doing before, because voice revenue came in at around 82.4. Yet there's a time they used to be at 90 something billion Kenya shillings on an annual basis. So those are trends that are good to take note of as investors in M-Pesa. Mobile data here, you can see now mobile data at 44.7 billion and growing faster than voice, because we like browsing, we like calling using Skype, WhatsApp, and things like that. So net income declined. Last year it was 73. That is the year ended 31st of March 2020. It was at 73 and now at 68.6 because of two things. Direct cost for M-Pesa commissions rose by 18%, and also customer retention and acquisition cost also rose by 18%. So on about 5 billion rise in costs led to that dip in profitability, as much as revenues were flat. And also there was a better or a more friendly effective corporation tax, which was lowered to 25% for the 9 months of 2020, from I think from April to December. So that should have favored them. And you can see OPEX decline. So it means they're getting more efficient in terms of the operations, whereby they saved 6.9 billion. But in terms of CapEx, they spent 34 billion Kenya shillings, and they expect to spend 40 billion as they continue to build their network. So there's some charts here that I want us to look at. So you can see also in terms of our population growing, it favors Safaricom. So the number of customers have grown by 12%, from 35 million to 39.9 million. So it simply means that this is actually higher than the number of adults in Kenya. So it means that there are people who own more than one line. And you can see the average revenue per customer went down. But in terms of revenue, that is taken care of by the rise in the number of customers. So this is the average revenue that Safaricom gets from a customer. So that's around 200 Kenya shillings per month. In 2020, now it has fallen down to around 170 Kenya shillings a month because this is 90 day. So I believe now you can see that all businesses are not created equal. So as much as we are complaining that life is tough here in Kenya, there's a company that is earning 170 Kenya shillings from 39 million Kenyans every month. So that's the beauty of some of these businesses. So voice, again, the number of customers active on the voice channels are 27 million. M-Pesa agents have gone up 43%. So it means this is to the advantage of Safaricom in terms of distribution. And we can see that is why the M-Pesa commissions went up. So I hope you can see that. 1 month active M-Pesa customers, 28 million. Mobile data, you can see 23 million Kenyans use mobile data. So this is quite informative. So home internet is becoming very key. Like now I'm using data from Safaricom, quite reliable, and from an African point of view, very fast. So infrastructure is still being built. Now we come to the revenue. So you can see voice revenue, they are falling it fell from 86 billion to 82. Messaging revenue also going down, mobile data revenue going up. So I think these are things that you can understand easily because of the global trends. So you can see M-Pesa dipped because in the first half of the year, there were zero rated transactions. So that was a directive from CBK to, this is like the stimulus package that you are given there in the US. For us, our stimulus package is to harass private companies. I don't agree with that, but that is what happened. You can't bail out Kenyans using private capital, but that is what happened. Yeah, so these are other revenues. So fixed line, this is home internet or office internet, known as broadband data. So total revenue, service revenue fell slightly. So sale of handsets, you can see other revenues. Then in total revenue went up marginally by 6%. And direct costs were the biggest driver of the decline in profitability. Like you can see here, these are about 5-point-something billion or 6 billion. And expected loss on financial assets. You know, Safaricom, in conjunction with commercial banks, they do mobile lending. Depreciation again quite high, at 7 billion. So you can see operating costs. So these are the costs that you have here. The major ones: direct costs at 80 billion, operating costs at 46 billion, depreciation at 37 billion. So those are the three biggest costs that they had. Then tax was at 24 billion. Then this was the profitability. So you can actually easily follow the story. Then dividend for the whole year, they gave, it was 0.92% as final dividend, and the interim dividend was around 0.4. So total is around 1.3 Kenya shillings per share. So operating costs, you can see how they've been. Structured here. Operating lease of buildings. So it went down materially. I don't know why. I'd have to wait for the annual report. So you can see employee and benefits at 18 billion. And remember, still, Safaricom paid M-Pesa agents 28 billion Kenya shillings. So if you add that and here, so you can see in terms of human capital, they supported Kenyans with 44 billion. So quite a good company from an African point of view. So you can see the total cost there. And Safaricom is not very big in assets. You can see its total equity is 137 billion. And let me tell you, when doing analysis, please remove the dividends. Dividend is not part of equity because this one will be paid out. So it'll only remain with this. So it can lie to you that the equity is 143 billion. No, this one is money that is going to be paid out. Like you can see, it was paid out. So when you are doing your book value for banks or any other company, please remove dividends because that is not what they own. That is what they are going to give shareholders, then they'll only remain with this. So they've returned 96 billion, despite the fact that they make as much as 70 billion per annum. So if you can look at this unfortunate situation that Safaricom is in, a bit of social enterprise, not doing things like technology companies because the government likes dividends and they have to pay dividends. Quite unfortunate for them because we usually say that if they could have been invested in US stocks or startups like other tech companies do, Apple, Google, they could have done very, very well. So it's quite a hot debate here, but I don't think that tech companies should be paying a lot of dividends. So what is 1.3 Kenya shillings out of a share price that is trading at 39 Kenya shillings per share? Yet if that 1 year they just don't pay dividends and set aside 56 billion, they could do so much with that because technology space is quite competitive and disruption can come from anywhere. But since government has a big shareholding there, they dictate certain things. Also Vodafone, they love dividends. So you can see Safaricom is not very big in assets. Their assets at around 230 billion Kenya shillings. And you can see equity is at 1 trillion. So you can see cash there, also quite cash rich. Then borrowing is also going up, and this might hit 50 billion because they are borrowing to go to Ethiopia. So I don't know whether Mark Zuckerberg would borrow to go to Ethiopia and still pay 55 billion in dividends. So it's crazy. If you look at it, to be honest, is poor asset allocations or capital allocation. So that's a small disadvantage there, but they can afford to pay the 50 billion anyway. So free cash flow, so believe in me, free cash flow of 64 billion Kenya shillings. So I hope we know that depreciation is actually cash that the company sits with. It's just an accounting metric, so that favors them. So if you have a depreciation of 37 billion, believe in me, that is cash that Safaricom is with. So they spent out cash, but now they're expensing it through the profit and loss account. But that is cash that they actually have. That's why they're also very rich in terms of cash. So I believe those are the main things that you needed to look at. So these are the metrics that you could want to look at. When you talk about mobile loans, the fulizas that you hear about, so in 2020, they disbursed 240 billion. That is the year ending 31st March 2020. Now the year ending 31st March 2021, it rose to 31 billion. And these are the revenue that they got. So this revenue is just 40% because the market share, the share for Safaricom is 40%. NCBA has 40% here, KCB 20%. So it means that if Safaricom got 45%, it then means that NCB also got, sorry, if Safaricom got 4.5 billion Kenya shillings, it means that NCB also got 4.5 billion, then KCB got a half of this. So that's about 11.5 billion Kenya shillings right there. Then daily active Fuliza customers are at 1.4 million. Yet at the NSE, the number of CDS accounts are at 1.9 million Kenya shillings, but the daily usage might be very low. So you can see mobile loans are more popular than capital markets. So this is another product that they have, a lending product with KCB. So these products, they're double-edged swords. They're helping people, but also they're really degrading the lifestyle of most Kenyans. So that's, again, a very hot topic to discuss. Mshwari, this is with NCBA now. So also it went down. So it tells you that these loans, they become very risky in distressed times. So unlike Fuliza, Fuliza is like an overdraft on someone's M-Pesa line. But these ones are with commercial banks. So you can see how the disbursements fell down and non-performing loans also rose. So on average, that is all about Safaricom. So here's how they tell you contribution to savings and lending. So total from all those products came in at 8.1 billion. So the other year it was 6.2 billion. So it's a difference of 2 billion. So despite the noise and what, so for me, if you ask me as someone in technology, these are not the best products, because if you look at their contribution, it's not that major, but the risk is actually high. So Safaricom is better off maybe expanding their technology space, because I see payments is a superior business model. So on average, I think the company would still do well. You can see some of the metrics that you have here: customer to bank, bank to customer, customer to customer. Betting also still huge. So believe you me, people spend as much as 135 billion Kenya shillings betting here in Kenya on an annual basis. Yet unit trust funds stand at 104 billion. So whether people are poor or not is quite debatable. It's just priorities and where people put in their money. So I'll stop at that point and take questions. Awesome. And make these documents your friend. Yeah, so you can always review them. You can see it's not a lot of information. It's just 16 pages actually.
Correct. Awesome, Robert. And that information is in Safaricom's website.
Yes.
It's already accessible. Very packed. Okay, so I know we have run a longer than expected, but we have a few questions. There was one of the unit trusts that you published. Do you have any take on Dry Associates? Dry Associates. I think it's one of the unit trusts. It's been in Kenya for a very long time.
Yes, it has. Yes.
I don't know what your take is or what's the word on the ground about. It's way up there. It's actually almost number 7 there.
Yeah, okay, they're quite good and they do wealth management.
Mm-hmm.
Just that in terms of being backed, they're not backed with any strong institution like CIC and Britain.
Mm-hmm.
So that is always a disadvantage when things go wrong. We know recently things went wrong at Britain. Because of COVID, they had some paper losses, not actual losses, but paper losses because of some investment that they made. But instead of passing those losses to investors, they absorbed those losses to the tune of 5 billion Kenya shillings.
Mm-hmm.
Yet Amana Capital had issues with an investment in Nakumat worth only 240 million, and they couldn't absorb that. So investors lost money. So that's the disadvantage of these standalone money market funds. So I would say that if I would invest in them, I wouldn't put a significant amount of my investments. I would rather be safe with CIC, NCBA, Britam, or ICA.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just my take.
Correct. And I know they deal with a lot of commercial paper. Actually, it's American run.
Yes, those commercial papers, Pete.
Yeah.
Let me take you to Google first. I want to show you something. There is Kalwax.
Mm-hmm.
Those commercial papers have not done us justice.
Okay, Kalwax.
Yes, Kalwax is owned by the big name Chandaria. You see, Kenyans people have big names, they're rich. They don't pay their debt. Can you believe?
Ooh.
And they're philanthropist. If you go to Gertrude's Hospital, he's donated so many things, but his company is not paying people 6 billion. This is how Kenya is run. People are rich out there in our eyes, but they're doing things that are making the common man lose money. So just read about Kalwax. You'll find that there are people who are stuck there, including commercial banks. So those commercial, even there's one of our big clients, like I have a client who has a dream of achieving $1 million. And he used to come to me every time that Dry Associate
Mm-hmm.
had this commercial paper, that commercial paper. I told them, yes, commercial paper are good, but you can see from Kenya that really they've not done well. See, these people are being auctioned 6 billion Kenya shillings. So why should I, as a rich person, donate 2 million to a hospital and not honor my obligation to the tune of 6 billion? You saw that affected even Sanlam Money Market Fund. So you see, they wrote off. So Pete, this is the advantage of going for the big guys. Sanlam is established, so they just write off 1.5 billion and it won't affect you as any trust holder. But for small ones like Amana, the associates that are not backed by these big organizations,
Mm-hmm.
there's that disadvantage that if things go wrong, they might not be able
Correct.
to stand in for you as an investor. So that's the thing that you need to be aware of.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Right.
Esther is asking,
Mm-hmm.
could you comment on the partnership about Amazon, between Amazon and Safaricom? Yes, that could be huge because these days we do a lot of Amazon purchases. So paying through M-Pesa is a great thing. The only thing is that Safaricom already has a partnership with Google and that service never works. So I don't know. But for Amazon, it is already working. So it could be very huge because actually there are some things, like there's a friend of mine who was going to Mount Kenya. He was going to climb Mount Kenya and he found out that all that he needed to buy, when he imported through Amazon, the cost was like 50% of
Mm-hmm.
what they could have spent buying those items here in Kenya. So that means that Amazon purchases is something that is on the rise. So this could really be big. And there's M-Pesa Global. If you look at Safaricom financials or investor deck, you'll see that it is becoming big as well. So I think these are positive thing for Safaricom. So M-Pesa is going to be big for Safaricom.
Correct.
Yeah,
Correct.
so is Amazon in Kenya? Not really, but they want to build some offices here in Kenya for part of their development team. So that's still work in progress, but they have offices in South Africa. So you have many Kenyans working there. Like I have my former colleagues, like 6 of them, we used to work with them at Equity, they're working at Amazon. So Amazon is becoming very big in Africa too.
All right, there was also a question about treasury bills. When is the next auction? Because I know you mentioned quite a bit about people looking into diversifying there.
Yeah, so we have treasury bills and bonds. So for these ones, the information is always available on CBK website. So treasury bills that are issued weekly and treasury bonds that are issued on a monthly basis. So you can see the latest auction results, and you can see on offer, the treasury bonds on offer is here. So let me share the link. So that is bond. So this website should also be your friend. Actually, let me share the CBK website first before I share the links under that. So since you are in diaspora, sometimes you might go through investment banks, either KCB or Equity. It might be easier for you, or you can go directly CBK. So you can see we are looking at average yields between 12.9% to 13.9%. So as you enjoy your 10% per annum on average for the stock market in the US, we are telling you that here we enjoy 13.9% on average. So that's why Kenyans are lazy and not keen on the stock market, because you can just sit, relax, and get that 13.9%. But still, we've seen that you can actually get more returns in shares as well, because shares, we have some companies like Standard Chartered, their share price is trading at 132, but before COVID, they're issuing dividends of 20 Kenyan shillings per share. So that's close to 14 or 15%. And we also have capital gains. So when you look at a diversified portfolio, a Kenyan investor on average can actually do very, very well.
All right. Very cool. All right. Do we have any other questions from anyone before we wrap up? I know it's very informative, a lot of information.
For the bills and bonds, you go directly to central bank to get them, or how do you?
Yeah, so you can go directly through central bank. They have diaspora desk, so let me check. Or you can go through banks like Equity. I know Equity, to be honest, is the most diaspora-friendly bank. From statistics, they run like over 60% of the inflows. So let's see government securities. So if you come here, who can invest? Yeah, you see him here. They're saying investing information for Kenyans in the diaspora, you see? So all that information is here. Yeah. So that is if you are going directly, or if you are going indirectly, you can go through the commercial banks. So I've shared the link. Yeah.
What's preferred? What's the preferred way?
So with central bank, it is quite straightforward, but for the banks, it's also good for those who don't have time to follow up with the CBK. But the banks will charge you around 0.015%, which can also be quite a lot. 0.015%. So I'd say that you can open the account directly with CBK, then you can directly bid. And when bidding, I tell people, just put the market rate. Just don't, some people try to be smart and they've been losing. Like, we have even investment banks that have lost when it comes to trying to calculate those rates. So we usually tell people that investing is not about CFAs. So can you believe a whole investment banks misadvising their customers, and they quote higher bids and miss out on a good infrastructure bond that was going at 12.6% because they are trying to be greedy. But market rate is always good. So that calculation and maths, it has proven that it is a little bit of guesswork, because it is just what someone thinks. It's like valuation of shares. It's not that accurate. But if you go with the market rate, like you've seen, which is non-competitive bids, we'd still get a very, very good rate.
All right.
Yeah.
Is there any word of upcoming IPO? Anything?
So IPO,
Is there any companies there? Are they looking to list anything at all this year?
Optiven, yeah. Optiven are talking of an IPO.
But that's through Ibuka, right?
Yes, through Ibuka, but direct IPO, not really. No serious company is planning to do an IPO. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And we already know about Ibuka. So I think you have said enough about Ibuka without saying much.
Yeah, to be honest, those are some of those things. But at least for me, I usually just tell the NSE behind the scenes, if you want to be taken seriously, stop the jokes of, as we speak, there are over 6 companies that have not announced their results for the year ended December 2020.
Mm-hmm.
So what could someone be doing? So 5 months later, they don't know how they performed in 2020. So that's kind of mediocrity.
Is that part is Optiven part of that group? Have they reported?
Optiven,
yeah, have they reported their books?
no, not yet. They're only supposed to share with us once they are ready to list. So now they're not in that list.
Okay.
Hey, Robert. Hey, Pete, and everybody.
Hey, Ralph.
Yeah,
Hi,
greetings. I'm well. Hi, Pete, everybody.
Awesome.
I have a question, Robert, and I know we have had this discussion before.
Yeah.
About investing in infrastructure bonds and those kind of treasury bills. For people like us who are in the diaspora here, I know you had mentioned at some point that we have to open that account with the central bank, and we have to go to the bank itself physically to get that application done. Do you see any chance that people like us who are here can have an opening of applying for that application from here? Is there any chance, do you think?
Yes, now you can. So here, we're on the CBK website.
Okay.
Only locals are now required to go there physically. So you can see, I've shared this link, centralbank.go.ke, securities. So you can actually download the forms here. Then you send to npo@centralbank.go.ke, and there's even an extension for diaspora people to call so that they can be assisted. So now you can do that, and you can even bid remotely. So they've allowed that for people in diaspora.
Oh, nice.
You have no excuse, Ralph, now.
Hey.
Yes.
I love this. I mean, it was really bothering my head, and I believe in those little things out there. So if we can do that from here, that's great.
Or you say, Robert, you said the minimum is how much?
50,000?
For treasury bills is 100,000 Kenya shillings. For bonds, it is 50,000 Kenya shillings.
Okay.
And now you should take advantage because CBK, they're doing some survey about how to serve diaspora better. So now is the soft side of CBK. So take advantage of that to reach out even to CBK, because now there's something they need from you. So that's the best time to also tell CBK how you want things to be done. Right. So I think there's some survey that is ongoing. I don't have the link, but you can check it online. And see that they are trying to reach out to diaspora people to find out how best they can serve you. So these are very good times, because diaspora remittances is now the #1 foreign exchange income earner for Kenya.
Wow, cool. All right, thanks, Ralph, for that question. We're going to wrap up. Any other question for Robert? All right, I'll go ahead, Robert, and do a service announcements. Thank you so much for giving your time and all these resources. It's a wealth of information for anyone that wants to diversify. So his NSE channel is up and running on Discord. It's very informative. He always posts a lot of information. You can directly reach out to him if you have a question of sorts. Let me also make an announcement about upcoming ideas from NCBA, and those that have taken the futures class. We have something pending for derivatives market. We may have a presentation about what's happening in that market, just so that those that want to diversify in Nairobi Securities Exchange you're not limited to just stocks. It's better to have education of what's out there and what you can do. Then you can at least find a way of investing or putting money to work in all these asset classes. But Robert is available for us every month. He's very helpful in terms of providing information. Now, I'm also going to ask if you have relatives in Kenya that want this education. He runs a masterclass in his investment group. You can reach out to him. Let him teach our individuals about money. Take advantage of him offering those classes, and he's going to speak in a language that they understand. When he mentioned Safaricom, those are companies that they know. KCB, those are companies that they know, and he'll guide them. I have my niece that took the class, and when I asked her, how was it? She said it's the best thing ever. I didn't know anything about money, and now I'm so learned. I'm going to start saving. I think I was just I wasn't careful about money at all. Now she is, and that information can help our generation. You hear Robert talking about our generation and changing our generation, because this is the time.
Yes. Yeah.
It is. There's no one else. We can all look for any other person. It's us that needs to do this. So thank you so much, Robert. Okay, Robert, we'll let you go. I know is it very early in the morning?
Yes, it's now 5 a.m. here in Kenya.
5 a.m. Yes. So we'll let you have some breakfast and samosas.
Yeah. So when you find me sleeping in my 60s and 70s, you should know that I was working.
Yes.